Harry Potter TV series is filming. They've started filming in London. I've seen a couple of clips or photos of the filming and certain characters dressed up. And it got me thinking, there's been so much chitter-chatter around whether these people are right for the roles, what people have opinions about. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to throw my thoughts in as well. Before we get into that, just an update on everything, guys, for you. So I am going to be going back down to one video a week from now on. I'm finding it as I'm getting later into my pregnancy, things are getting a lot harder, and I don't know if I can really commit to the two a week at the moment. So I am going to be going back down to one a week, but I am going to try and be a bit more consistent than I have been. I've had a lot going on in my personal life the last couple of weeks, so I've had to step back from doing videos, but hopefully you guys will enjoy this one. So let's have a look into the cast that has been announced and talk about that. So firstly, we'll obviously start with the Golden Trio, the main three, and we're going to start with Harry. So Harry was originally played by Daniel Radcliffe in the movies, and he's now going to be played by Dominic McLaughlin. Now, when you look at Dominic dressed up, he looks the epitome of Harry. He looks exactly how you expect Harry to look. I think he's even book accurate with the eyes. I think just looking at him, I think that this is looking like it's going to be a good fit. Obviously, I can't comment on a lot of how these people act, so I am just going on looks today. But I think that side by side, when you put them together, they look like, you know, it is a good fit for them. Moving on to Hermione Granger, originally played by Emma Watson, is now going to be played by Arabella Stanton. Now, when the news broke, I didn't think anything of it, because I've always known Hermione to be described as having, I think it was thick, bushy hair, brown hair, and big front teeth. There was nothing else explained about her. So the casting didn't bother me, but it bothered a lot of people, and I'm not gonna tell you why. I think you can clearly see why it bothered people. But it also got the same reaction on Cursed Child when it went on stage, and the woman who played Hermione there. I don't understand why people are so caught up about this. She fits what the narrative is. She fits how J.K. Rowling wrote her, okay? She wrote that she has big bushy hair, big front teeth. Even if she wrote anything else, they're the only things that really stick in my head. The only character where I think it's described his like skin tone is Malfoy, where he's very pale, very sallowy, and very, you know, he's described to look the way that Tom Felton looked as Draco. That's how I always imagined him when I read the books. I don't think any other character, again, maybe Ron was described as being ginger. If you took that element away, changes a lot. But otherwise, I don't really see the problem. I think the problem is here that people are forgetting these are kids, and this is probably a big break for a lot of these kids. This probably maybe could be their first acting job, and they're getting a lot of hate from people who A, don't know them, B, haven't even seen what they can do yet, and C, have clearly forgotten the book descriptions. So I really do feel for these kids, because, and to be fair, a lot of the cast, because they have had a lot of backlash about stuff, and I don't really understand why. Like, it doesn't really make sense. Moving on to Ron Weasley, originally played by Rupert Grint and now going to be played by Alistair Stout. Again, someone who I think looks like Ron Weasley. He has the ginger hair and the freckles, which I think is how Ron's actually described in the books. So yeah, again, I think this is, again, another good casting choice. I think the Golden Trio has been cast very well. Like I said, I've not actually seen any of these kid actors in anything else, or if I have, I probably wouldn't have recognised them. But the fact that they are coming in, and this is their first big role, you know, fair play to them. This is, I think, how Rupert Grint and Emma Watson, this was their first you know, look at the big screen or their first big job. Daniel Radcliffe very much, I think, was in David Copperfield, I think, with Maggie Smith. So he'd already been on screen before, he'd been on Broadway. So this was kind of like almost old hat for him at that point. But I think looking at the Golden Trio, I think it's going to be quite... I don't understand why there was like confusion or apprehension about it. I don't see a problem with it at all. Moving on to Albus Dumbledore. So Albus Dumbledore was played by both Richard Harris and Michael Gambon. Richard Harris passed away after the second film, and then Michael Gambon took over the rest. This is going to be played by John Lithgow. Now, John Lithgow is an American actor. You might recognise him from, I think it's Third Rock from the Sun. Or you could recognise him as Winston Churchill from The Crown. Now, if I hadn't seen The Crown, I'd only seen Third Rock from the Sun, I would have been like, oh my gosh, it's another American trying to do a British accent. Like, it doesn't always work very well. It can sometimes feel a little bit forced, a little bit too stereotypical. But having seen John Lithgow in The Crown and knowing what he can do, I think he's going to make a great Dumbledore. Now, Dumbledore is a character that, as they progress through the series, needs more and more energy, especially towards the end when, you know, he's he's fighting Voldemort, or the scene where they're trying to get the Horcrux from that kind of like cave area. So I really think that John Lithgow can do that. I haven't seen much more of his work than those two shows that I've mentioned, but I've liked him in both, so I think he could be a really good character or a really good actor. I'm not sure the reception he got around that because, again, like I said, some people may not have seen The Crown, may not have recognised him as being Winston Churchill in The Crown, so they may, again, be a bit like it's an American, you know, getting in on a British TV show, but it doesn't feel like that when you watch him do his English accent. I really like him, basically. We then have McGonagall, originally played by Maggie Smith and now going to be played by Janet McTeer. Now, I don't know who Janet McTeer is. Let me know in the comments if she's someone who is really famous, and I probably have seen her. But again, looking at her, I think that she could play, I think she could be a good McGonagall. I think McGonagall's one of those characters where potentially anyone could look like McGonagall, but it's how they act that is going to really set them apart or sell the illusion. Obviously, we know McGonagall can be quite strict, or she can have a bit more of a playful side on her, especially in the books when Harry speaks back to Umbridge and she just tells him to have a biscuit, you know, or well, McGonagall tells him to have a biscuit, just things like that, just little things you wouldn't expect from McGonagall. You need to have an actress who can do that kind of both strict and soft and funny slash jokey side to her. So I'm hoping for big things here. I think McGonagall is a big role, again like Dumbledore, is a big role to fill. The Golden Trio, of course, is a big role to fill, but you've got all these other characters around that really do make up the universe, and McGonagall is one of these. So I'm hoping that this character, this actress, can really pull in everything that Maggie Smith was able to deliver, but make it her own at the same time. We don't just want a carbon copy. Next, we have Severus Snape. So this was originally played by Alan Rickman, and I'm going to probably say this wrong, so I apologise. And it's going to be played by Papa Asidu, I think. I'm probably saying that wrong. Now again, you guys probably know that there was some backlash around this character being cast, or this actor being cast, so I keep saying character, this actor being cast. And again, the way that Snape is described in the book, I don't really remember. I just remember him being sort of described as being greasy. But a lot of people kicked off about this. And again, I think when it comes to things like this, people are forgetting that this is a work of fiction. It doesn't actually matter. Okay, so we have the books. We want the book it to be true to the books, of course. But before the films came out, you made up what these people look like in your head anyway, and chances are the way that you saw Malfoy or Hagrid or, I don't know, Seamus, let's just pick a random character, it probably isn't how you saw them on screen, but now because you've seen them on screen, that's how you think of them when you read the books. So I don't really understand why people are getting so upset about a work of fiction. And again, at the end of the day, these are actual people who are being affected by this. These are people who are probably reading these things, hearing these things, and I just think people need to be a bit more compassionate. Like, this guy is clearly he's clearly been cast for a reason, and you guys are picking apart for a different reason, and I just don't think it's right. So I'm reserving any judgment, any thoughts I have about this pairing until I've seen the show, because at the end of the day, if they can't act, that is going to be way more disappointing than how they look. To me anyway. I'm just putting that out there. Moving on to someone I am really excited about, and this is Rubeus Hagrid, originally played by Robbie Coltrane, now to be played by Nick Frost. So me and my friend, we're quite excited about this show, and he wasn't sure about Nick Frost doing this. Me, on the other hand, I think it is great. When you see them side by side, it does just look like a young Hagrid. And I know that Nick Frost can do the accent as well. Obviously, if you've seen things like Hot Fuzz, then you'll probably know his West Country accent is really good. I mean, he might be from the West Country, I have absolutely no idea. But I've seen a few things that he's been in. I've always found him really funny. I've always really liked him. And Hagrid is that character where you need to be able to deliver lines which aren't funny in a funny way. So the thing where he says, "I shouldn't have told you that," it always makes me smile, because it's almost like this kind of part admonishment to himself that he's, "Oh, I shouldn't have told you that." Like, "Oh, why have I said that?" But also kind of trying to deliver it to the kids like, "I should not have told you that. Like, don't tell anyone, I shouldn't have told you that." And it needs to be delivered in such a way that it's funny, but also you kind of understand that Hagrid's worried that he said something he shouldn't. And I think Nick Frost is the character, or is the actor who is able to do that. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing what he does. And again, the stills that I've seen so far of them filming is actually of Nick Frost dressed up. And I think it looks amazing. I'm really excited to see how he plays in this role. Molly Weasley is another character with big shoes to fill. She is obviously Harry's surrogate mother. She's a stand-in for him. She's Ron's obviously mother as well. But she's a character that maybe isn't, you may say, "Oh, she's not a big character," but she has a massive impact. And I think that, to me, she's a character that I've always loved, and she was played by Julie Walters in the movies, and I loved that. Julie Walters has such an amazing range of emotions when she acts, and I really, really love her in everything I've seen her in. She's going to be played by Catherine Parkinson in the TV show. Now, I think I've only seen Catherine in IT Crowd. There must be something else I've seen her in, but it's not coming to mind right now. And I like her. I think she's a really good comedic actress. I can't think off the top of my head if I've seen her in anything serious. So this for me is going to be a kind of like game changer. It's going to be a bit of a twist on what I have seen her do. But again, I think that she could play a good Molly Weasley. But again, like I said, I'm going to have to wait and see what she does on the big screen before I can really comment, because I haven't seen her do a serious role, just the more comedic side of TV. Draco Malfoy. So as I mentioned, Tom Felton, with his bleached blonde hair in the movie, is going to be played by Lox Pratt in the TV show. Again, I can't really comment much about Lox. I don't know him. I don't know if he's acted before, or if he has, I've probably not seen it. So this is someone else who I'm quite curious about. The picture that I'm looking at, I can very much see this being a Draco Malfoy. But again, I'm going to reserve judgment for when I've actually seen it. And again, these are kids. They're doing their best. They're just out there living a dream. So I'm not going to say anything negative about anyone on this list, because, not being funny, they're out there doing what I wish I had the confidence to do, and I don't. So I'm not going to say anything. Fair play to them. Lucius Malfoy. So Lucius is a character who I love, played by Jason Isaacs, who I think is the reason I love it, because he has really, he really brought through the characteristics of the book for me into the TV show. The long drooling way he talks, or, you know, the way that he just makes everyone around him feel much smaller. And correct me if I'm wrong, I do not remember Lucius being described, his character being described. Now, I've said this before, I haven't read the books for a while. I am working my way through them at the moment again to refresh myself on like those nuances, those big differences. But if he was described, it clearly didn't stick in my head. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. I remember thinking when I watched the movies for the first time. But he did bring through those characteristics of not being a bit slimy, not being a very nice character really from the books. And he's going to be played by Johnny Flynn. Now, Johnny Flynn is a name I recognise, it's a face I recognise, but I don't actually know where I recognise him from. So I'll have a little quick look.
A few moments later.
Okay, so looking at his IMDb list, the films that he's been in, which I've seen, but I can't find on the cast list. But one thing that I did see him in was Operation Mincemeat, and he played Ian Fleming. Yes, that Ian Fleming, the one who wrote James Bond. That was a wild coincidence when I saw that, and I was like, what the... And I liked him in that. It was definitely more of a serious role, so he can play serious, and you need serious for Lucius. He's not playful, he's not jolly, he is very matter-of-fact, very serious, and very, serious. There's no other way I can really word that. So I think he could be a really good Malfoy. I am curious how they're going to dress him up. Are they going to stick with the long hair and the big cane as we know him to be? Or are they going to take a different approach with him and do something slightly different? So I am looking forward to seeing how Lucius transpires. Neville Longbottom is another one of our young cast, originally played by Matthew Lewis. And I like Matthew Lewis. I've seen him in other things since, and I've enjoyed everything he's done. To be played by Rory Wilmot. And again, I can't really say anything. I don't know who this guy is. But I think Neville can be played by anyone who can be a bit bumbling, who can be a little bit, or come across a little bit accent prone, maybe a bit unsure, a bit nervous of himself. So I think, yeah, you could have basically anyone who has those, who can pull those characteristics out, anyone play him. Again, I don't remember what he looks like or how he's described in the book. I don't think it really matters for characters like Neville. So I'm excited to see how Neville is shown on screen as well. Dudley Dursley, a character who is both a big character and not a big character at the same time. So I say that because he's in obviously quite a few of the films and a few of the books, and he's obviously plays more of a character, more of an impact in the books than he does in the movies. But he's Harry's cousin, so you see him a fair amount in the first couple of films and read about him a fair amount in the first couple of books. So again, like I said, a big character but not a big character at the same time. Originally played by Harry Melling in the movies, and to be played by Amos Kitson. Now, when I read Amos, it took me straight away to Cedric's father, who's called Amos as well, and I really like that little link. I know it's pure coincidence, but I just really like there's that little kind of thing there that just felt really Harry Pottery. Now, when you look at them, Amos could have played, he just looks like, to me, how Dudley did as a young boy anyway. So I'm really excited. Again, all you really need for this, Dudley is described as being a bit portly. I think isn't he described as being like blonde or something in the books? I remember that was one thing that people were quite annoyed about. So in the books, Petunia is meant to be blonde with Dudley and Vernon is meant to have dark hair. But in the movies, they've all got dark hair. And I remember I was talking with the same friend I mentioned earlier, and we were talking about how, again, they were all dark haired. And it's little things like that with even things like Harry's eyes. Like, it didn't really bother me because I didn't really think that was such a big detail that it had to matter. But I'm curious as to if they're going to stick more with how the books describe them or how the movies have portrayed them. Next we have Madame Hooch, originally played by Zoe Wanamaker, who I love. I just think she's such a good actress, and who's going to be played by Louise Brealey. Now again, she's a character or an actress that I recognise. Who are you? I just had to have a quick look as to who she is, because I recognised her face, and she plays Molly in Sherlock. And I love Sherlock. I think Sherlock is a great TV show. I could do an entire series about Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, because I just love that entire thing. But I really like this actress. And Madame Hooch in the movies doesn't really play as big a role, kind of. I think she's only in the first movie. I can't remember how much she's in the books. But I think that this is a really good pairing. Again, this lady Louise, when I've seen her play Sherlock, she's had a big range of emotion, and she's been able to portray different emotions as needed, and I really enjoy watching her. So this I'm very, very excited about. Moving on to Ollivander, originally played by John Hurt, now to be played by Anton Lesser. Again, an actor I recognise. I don't know where I recognise him from, but I can see this person playing Ollivander. Again, I don't think there's real much description about how Ollivander looks, apart from being, I think, old. But yeah, I don't really have much to say on this one, because I think looking at it, yeah, it's going to be fine. All comes down to how the acting goes for this. Right, moving down to the last couple I'm going to talk about, because there's been a few more that have been announced. But they're characters with actors I'm not really familiar with, so I'm going to skip through those, and I'll touch on those when the actual movie, the actual TV show comes out, and I can talk about my views following this video and having watched it. So next we're going to look at Petunia Dursley, played by Fiona Shaw originally. Fantastic actress. Really despised her in the movies. She played it very well. Other things I've seen her in, I really liked the character she's played. So again, an actress with a lot of range, to be played by Belle Powley. Again, not someone I recognise, but the one thing I've noticed that they're doing a lot with this cast is they're casting them a lot younger, which I'm not mad about, because I think they were meant to be younger, or in the books they're portrayed as younger than they actually are in the movies, if that makes sense. So they definitely have taken a stance that everyone's slightly younger than we've used to seeing them. I know that for some characters we have like their days that they died, so we can kind of work, and their age they were when they died, we can work backwards and figure out how old they were or how they would have been. But yeah, I think between her and Vernon, who was played by Richard Griffiths and is now played by Daniel Rigby, again a younger actor, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do when they do have a younger, they're being portrayed as younger. So I think, I don't know how old the Dursleys were meant to be when they got Harry, but surely the 30s, maybe late 20s, and then when we see them, maybe late 30s. I'm not actually sure. So I'm really interested to see how the dynamic goes when you compare the older Dursley family to the younger portrayed Dursley family. And the last one I am just going to touch on is Argus Filch. There's about 5 more people who have been announced that I haven't touched on for various reasons, as I've mentioned. The original Argus Filch was played by David Bradley, and this one is going to be played by Paul Whitehouse. Now, personally, I've not seen Paul Whitehouse do anything serious, I don't think. I think I've always seen him in a slightly more jovial role. Let's have a look. So the things I've always seen him in are things like Kevin and Perry Go Large, or silly shows, like the Harry Enfield show, stuff like that, Gone Fishing. Just things that are just very, I guess you could say childish, very juvenile, things that are just funny. Just looking at this now, again, he's in the IT crowd apparently. I've heard his voice in things like Corpse Bride, but being able to voice something seriously and act something seriously, I think are different things. So I'm really curious to see how Paul Whitehouse comes across. But that is all of the cast that I'm going to go through who have actually been announced. We do have others if you want to look into it, like Quirrell, Fudge has been announced as well, and Seamus has been announced, and Parvati has also been announced as well. So do go check those out if you want to. There's a whole article in the Hollywood Reporter which you can have a look at, but it's all over social media as well. These people, these actors who have been cast. The ones they haven't cast at the time of me recording this is Lily Potter, James Potter, and Voldemort, as far as I'm aware. Now that could have changed. I haven't seen anything, but I think from what I read, they were actually going to try and keep Voldemort more of a closely guarded secret, so they weren't going to reveal who he was. Let me know if you do like this video, guys. I know that they are currently releasing the lineup for, or the cast should I say, for the Hunger Games. If you want me to do the same here, let me know, because it is actually a cast I'm quite excited about, and I'm really interested to hear what you guys think as well. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't want you to miss out on anything we do have coming up, and until next time, you take care.